The architecture of cathedrals and churches in the United Kingdom is one of the most awe-inspiring features of the country's cultural and religious landscape. From the grandeur of Westminster Abbey to the majestic Durham Cathedral, these structures stand as monumental works of art and engineering. However, many of the architects behind these masterpieces remain shrouded in mystery, their names largely unknown or forgotten by time. The lack of recorded information, combined with the centuries of changes and restorations, adds an air of intrigue to the story of these cathedrals and churches. This article seeks to uncover the history and the unknown architects behind some of the most iconic religious structures in the UK. The history of church architecture in England stretches back to the early medieval period, with churches and cathedrals evolving in style as religious practices and societal needs changed. Christianity was introduced to the British Isles by the Romans, but the distinct architectural identity of the UK's religious structures began to form after the arrival of the Saxons in the 5th and 6th centuries. These early churches were simple wooden structures, but with the spread of Christianity and the foundation of monastic communities, churches began to be constructed from stone. By the Norman conquest of 1066, Romanesque architecture, characterized by thick stone walls, rounded arches, and large towers, began to dominate. This was followed by the emergence of the Gothic style in the 12th century, which introduced pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses. The shift to Gothic architecture, with its emphasis on verticality and light-filled interiors, marked a new chapter in church design. The building of grand cathedrals during the Middle Ages was not just about creating places of worship, but also about showcasing the wealth and power of the church. These projects often took centuries to complete, and the identity of the architects behind them was frequently lost in the passage of time. One of the central mysteries surrounding the cathedrals and churches of the UK is the identity of the architects responsible for their design. In many cases, there are no clear records of who the architect was. This is particularly true for the medieval period when most of these buildings were constructed. At the time, architecture was not considered an individual profession as it is today. Instead, cathedral building was often overseen by a master mason or a monk, with many of the craftsmen working anonymously. Canterbury Cathedral, one of the most famous cathedrals in the UK, was rebuilt after a fire in 1174. The rebuilding process was overseen by a French architect named William of Sens. He is often credited with introducing the Gothic style to England, which marked a departure from the Romanesque style. However, after a fall in 1178, William of Sens was replaced by another architect, William the Englishman, and much of his original work was altered. Despite being one of the first architects to bring the Gothic style to England, his name is not widely recognized, and much of his contribution is shrouded in mystery. John Wastel is one of the few architects from the late medieval period who is known by name. He is credited with the design of King's College Chapel at the University of Cambridge. The chapel, constructed between 1446 and 1515, is a masterpiece of Gothic architecture, particularly known for its fan-vaulted ceiling. Wastel's work is notable for its innovative design and use of space, but the details of his life remain largely unknown. His involvement with the chapel was revealed in historical records, but much of the context surrounding his career and other works has been lost. Perhaps the most famous architect in British history is Sir Christopher Wren. Best known for designing St. Paul's Cathedral in London, Wren was also responsible for the rebuilding of 52 churches in London after the Great Fire of 1666. Wren's work marked the end of the Baroque period in English architecture and ushered in a new era of classical design. St. Paul's Cathedral, with its magnificent dome and elegant proportions, remains one of the most iconic buildings in the UK. Wren's reputation as an architect is solidified by this work, but he was also a brilliant scientist and mathematician. Despite his fame, much of his early architectural training and influences remain enigmatic, contributing to the mystery of his genius. While a few names like Wren and Wastel are remembered, many of the builders and architects of medieval churches and cathedrals are lost to history. The majority of these buildings were constructed by master masons, who were often part of a larger guild system. These men, who oversaw the planning and construction of the buildings, would have had significant knowledge of architectural principles, but were often not individually credited for their work. Instead, the credit went to the church or monastic institution commissioning the building. This anonymity is a hallmark of many of the structures that make up the landscape of medieval England. One example of this is Durham Cathedral, widely considered one of the greatest achievements of Norman architecture. While the name of its master mason remains unknown, it is clear that the cathedral's design, particularly its innovative use of ribbed vaulting, was a groundbreaking achievement in construction and design. Similarly, Salisbury Cathedral, known for its striking spire, was constructed by a series of masons over several decades, but the individual responsible for its design is largely forgotten. The construction of cathedrals and churches was often closely tied to the religious and political power structures of the time. Kings, bishops, and powerful lords commissioned these grand buildings as symbols of their wealth and influence. The churches were meant not only to serve as places of worship, but also to assert the power and legitimacy of the ruling elites. In some cases, architects and builders were commissioned to design churches that reflected the power of the monarchy, or the church hierarchy. During the Middle Ages, the church played a central role in the lives of individuals, and the construction of these religious structures was seen as a way of connecting the earthly realm with the divine. The grand cathedrals and churches were meant to inspire awe and devotion, drawing the faithful closer to God. The anonymous nature of many of the architects only adds to the sense of mystery, as these structures often represent the collective effort of many craftsmen over generations. The cathedrals and churches of the UK stand as a testament to the skill and ingenuity of the architects, masons, and builders who constructed them. While many of these individuals remain anonymous, their work continues to shape the architectural landscape of the UK. Modern restoration efforts are helping to preserve these structures, ensuring that future generations can continue to marvel at their beauty and complexity. The mystery surrounding the architects of the UK's cathedrals and churches only adds to the allure of these magnificent buildings. While their names may be lost to history, the enduring legacy of their work speaks volumes about the significance of these structures in the religious and cultural history of the United Kingdom. The architects and builders behind the cathedrals and churches of the UK remain a source of fascination and mystery. From the unknown masons of medieval England to the renowned Sir Christopher Wren, the history of these buildings is deeply intertwined with the religious and political fabric of the country. The grand and intricate designs of these structures continue to inspire awe, and their legacy is a reminder of the anonymous craftsmen whose genius helped shape the architectural landscape of the UK.